So I'm going to switch the conversation here to just the story of building Qweebi as a company. And I'm curious, how did the two of you connect? Like, were you in undergrad together? How did your story start together?
Maybe I'll start with a bit of background. So basically, um, my background is I'm a computer science engineer, and I've been an entrepreneur for the last 11 years or so, right? And I love solving problems with 3D graphics. In fact, that's how my career started. I was an engineer building games and simulations for a really long time, right? And then shortly after that, I started a first company. That's actually where Aman and I met. Okay, and this was back in 2014. And the idea was to help online shoppers, basically a better way to buy furniture online, right? Instead of going to, let's say, your Crate and Barrel or your Pottery Barn, you would go to another website which would allow you to see your home 3D and allow you to mix and match furniture to see how it would look together, right? So you could throw together couches and rugs and wall paints and tables and lamps and do a sort of shop the look and decide for yourself what you would want to buy. That was the premise. And Amar and I built that company together. That's where we met. Shortly after that, since 2021, I'm building Qweebi here with Aman and a small team. And Aman, you want to talk about how we met?
Sure, I can. So we met like Vivek said, we met in 2014, but we actually met in Jan 2015, and it's actually been 10 years now. So back then, I was still in college. I was doing my electronics and communication engineering. I graduated in, let's say, July 2015, but I met Vivek in whatever Jan of 2015, and while he was building his first company. So this is the story. I always wanted to do my own startup. Like from day one of college, the goal was clear that boss, you got to make your own company someday, right? And so throughout college, I was working on one or the other startup idea to really get something going. And I had pitched one of those ideas to a tech investor, and this tech investor, he was very sweet. He heard me, and then he said that, Aman, I don't think you're ready yet. It might be helpful for you to go and work at an early stage startup. And once you've sort of built some skills, then go try doing something on your own. I know this guy, Vivek, who's working on something interesting. Why don't you go and meet him? So very reluctantly, I was like, I want to do my own startup, man. Why are you telling me this? But very reluctantly, I went and met Vivek at Starbucks. At that time, he had just started the company. He had a couple of people working for him, and he showed me his product. And you know, Vivek, like he'll always be very excited about what he's building, and then he'll inspire everybody else. So he showed me that product. Like I was really impressed, and it was still sort of a tech prototype, but he said, boss, you have the opportunity to take it to market. Why don't you come and join us? So for me, it felt like I'm getting a golden opportunity. I'm getting an opportunity to take something which is still at early stages to market, and I'll get to sort of grow with the company. So yeah, that's the reason. We decided to sort of work. At least I decided to work with Vivek, and yeah, it's been 10 years. It's been an awesome ride. We're building our second startup. We sold our first startup. So yeah, it's been it's been a ride and an adventure with somebody now I can say I know really well, and I wouldn't want to switch it for anything else.
So I
So
guess,
I just want to add one thing. This is a detail that Aman missed out. He
oh,
was like when I met him at Starbucks, I was expecting like this kid out of college, okay. So I went and showed him what we're doing, and he started asking me all these questions that I didn't have answers to. Okay, I was like, "How are you going to take it to market? And who's the actual customer?" It's like, okay, this I did not expect this, right? So I immediately thought that, I found Aman to be one of the smartest people I had interacted with. That immediately I connected. And I must say that Aman was a little bit of a reluctant bride, right? He was really focused on, he had a few ideas of his own and he was trying to try a few things. And so he said, okay, fine, this sounds interesting. Maybe I'll drop by a few days a week and see how it goes. So I said, sure, we could do that. And he would drop by in the afternoons and he would check out what everybody's working on. And there was a moment where I knew that, this is someone that I really want on the team. So Aman's background, again, he's coming from a sales and marketing background. He did engineering, but he comes from a sales and marketing. He's focused on that kind of the business side of things. And the first few times we were trying to sell to a few companies, and we were doing pitches, and it was always we're selling to technical companies. So the pitch was always about, hey, we can help you visualize your furniture in 3D, and a lot of the talk would be about technical computer graphics, right? And Aman came back and said, hey, listen, I'm having a hard time selling this because I don't understand computer graphics, right? So I just casually said, hey, listen, there's a few books here and there's a few resources. Maybe you should just flip through. And he started diving into it. 2 weeks down, he's writing code on computer graphics. I totally didn't expect that, right? So that's a little bit about Aman. And it took me 3 months. And then I finally told him, hey, listen, Aman, we'd love to have you on board, but you got to do this full time. You got to give up everything else and you got to do this full time. And he made the choice, and we've never looked back since, right? So that was the journey.
And then what was the spark that turned you into STEM education? How did you pivot into that area? Because it's still, animation and graphics. I see the connection, but how education?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So after we wrapped up our previous startup, right? Now here we are in 2020. Aman and I are looking for the next big challenge. The one thing we knew was that we want to work together, right? So that was done, right? The second thing was we're looking for a big meaty problem to solve, okay? And so picture this: it's 2020, and the biggest thing that happened was my wife and I just had a baby, okay? And so you know how new parenting completely changes you, right? And all of a sudden you're already talking about, oh, how is she going to grow up, what's she going to be, and then you start naturally gravitating towards education, right? And things got really crazy when COVID peaked and all the schools completely shut down, right? And every conversation in every circle was only about education. Okay, so that's what Amar and I were. We were running buddies. We used to run every day and brainstorm different ideas, and it got us curious. That whole environment got us curious to say, okay, let's take a deeper look at what's happening in K-12. Okay, we decided to dig deeper and said, okay, let's see if we can spot a problem worth solving. We started casually looking at curriculums, math curriculums, science curriculums, signed up to a few online classes to see how it's going. And really, the surprise was, in all these years since we were in school, nothing much has changed, okay, in terms of math and science education. Yes, there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of content that's available, but in terms of actually understanding the subject, it was still the same approach. We were leading with boring definitions and scary equations for math and physics and science, okay? And for me, this hit me pretty hard on the chest because I went through an experience personally in college that completely changed the way I looked at math and science, right? And it just took me back. Really, what happened was, picture this. So right now you see me as someone who's an engineer, entrepreneur, fixing problems with computer graphics, a lot of math and science. But back in college, this was not that Vivek. This was the Vivek in college was all he cared about was playing basketball. I was captain of the college basketball team. And you could say my first part-time job was video games. I used to be a fanatic. I used to make money winning tournaments in video games, right? And in final year, the moment happened in final year when you're in senior year, you have to figure out what you're going to do next, right? I had no idea. And the only thing I thought was, hey, I love video games. I also like programming. How hard can it be? Let me go do that. The only thing I didn't want to do is math, okay? Because in college, I never paid attention. I never saw the point. I thought I'd never use this again. So I was like, why bother? Okay. But what happened was really interesting is I'm in the library, college library. picked out a book on game development, and I'm walking to the desk and I'm thinking, okay, I'll check this out and we'll see how it goes. Um, Unlike other textbooks, game development books are always very colorful. They've got robots and cars and all sorts of really fun stuff on the cover. I'm flipping the cover and I get the shock of my life. Okay. Because all I see is chapter after chapter after chapter of math. Okay. There's nothing but linear algebra, trigonometry, calculus, integral calculus. And I was like, wait a second, I'm not prepared for this. I thought computer games is something that's really cool. And I thought I could just go do this. So I think that's when it really hit me that if my teacher had only told me that study linear algebra and you can go make a computer game, I would have jumped at it. Okay. So I think basically this, when I recalled all of this in 2020, the feeling I got was we are still boring kids to death, right? And I think what we need to do is kind of switch it around. Instead of boring definitions and scary equations, is there a way that we can lead with super fun projects that kids are going to be really excited about, and then hook them in to study the hard stuff? Because once they're interested, then you got them going, right? So that was a premise. By the way, Natasha, Claire, at this point, you know how it is, right? You're starting, it's a big idea and you know nothing about it because we are not teachers. We only know the other side of it. What happens after the classroom, we know from our lived experience, but we don't know how to teach. So I think this was the inception. And then once we started talking to all these teachers, by the way, we didn't even know of STEM teachers. There was one teacher, one school in India that we got introduced to the whole concept of STEM education. And then when we started talking to teachers, we found out, hey, wait a second, there's a whole bunch of teachers whose only goal is exactly this: change the way kids look at math and science, get them excited by doing these kinds of projects. And so we decided, our place is probably this. Let's get behind all STEM teachers and let's create a platform that really helps them run these kinds of super fun projects that are rooted in math and science. So that's basically the inception. Aman, did I cover that? Anything else that you want to add there?
I think there's a distinct story that comes to my mind when we started speaking to STEM teachers and we learned about the engineering design process. So whenever you solve problems in the real world, right, you'd generally be sitting in a meeting room and you'd have this problem. Oh, customers are not coming to our website, or there's some problem with our product, or whatever it is, right? There'll be some problem, and there'll be like this team of two, three, four people who try to sort of define what the problem really is, brainstorm multiple solutions, go implement one solution, launch in the market, and then get data, and then sort of go from there, right?
Mhm.
When the teacher was talking about the engineering design process in class, like what I was really imagining would be, it'll be so cool if in that room, instead of adults with like 10, 20 years of business experience, what if there were kids who were sitting in that room and then solving those problems? And that's what sort of STEM really looked like from our perspective. And I said to Vivek that, boss, what would happen if we would have gone through that kind of education? Like we would have been very different. Like if we were getting to solve problems like this in this way from the very beginning. So that was one. The other is that both of us are sort of nerds. We just love like foundational science and math. Um, the Beginning of Infinity by David Deutsch is my favorite book in the world, and just uh, like have so much appreciation for the scientific method, and how it really like almost like evolved humanity from dark ages where we used to like listen to somebody to sort of started thinking for ourselves. So just have a lot of love generally for science and math, and it felt like after selling furniture for 6 7 years, which was really cool, we learned a lot, but it was not fulfilling the soul. Let's do something which, if we are successful, um, can impact a lot of people, and can spread our love for science and math. So yeah, so that's why we just jumped into it.
Claire, do you feel a lot of similarities between their story and kind of our journey into STEM education?
Yeah, you're talking about like being running buddies and how we used to run a whole bunch. I'm just kidding. We don't
Yeah,
run.
right. I was like, what are you talking about?
Being chased.
Not us. Besides that part of the story. Because our journey with Vivify started 10 years ago. In 2014, but also we were in engineering and we were working in industry, and then just felt like something was missing and we wanted to make impact in a meaningful way. And Claire had kids as well around that time when we started Vivify, and I started volunteering with kids after school, and that's where we got hooked. And we knew nothing about education. We are not, teachers by training. We had just our own experience as students, so very similar to you. And our kind of approach, not having a computer animation furniture selling background, ours was space. Like, that's what excited us. We were like, we loved rockets and astronauts and going to Mars. And so we thought, how could we bring this love of space and just looking up and wondering into education? And so I think we come from very similar passions. And I'm trying to figure out y'all's personalities, because our personalities work well together. We're different yet the same. Claire, what do you think?
Totally. Yep. I ignore the emails. You answer the emails. This is how we work.
Yeah, there's something about like the partnership. I think, Vivek, you said you met Aman and you were just like, wow, this guy asked so many questions and he's just like pushing. And then Aman came in like not wanting anything to do with that company, right? And so there was just something about your partnership. Can you tell me more, like, Vivek, about like what it takes to be a good partnership as co-founders? Because you're sharing the burden of this company.
Yeah. So I think I got to say that in all my years in professional career, this is actually one of the first time I've had such a highly collaborative environment. When you're working in corporate, you how do I put it? Um you go into meetings prepared, right? And the only time people see you is when there is output that you're discussing. But nobody sees the behind the curtains. How do you work? How much effort do you put in? So this is the first time where we were vulnerable enough to kind of, share exactly how we work. So I haven't had that experience too many times before, right? So that was really interesting. I think it all starts for us with trust. We've known each other a really long time. So we know that, like you said, we're same, but different. We're same because we both really want to build a company that has a really high impact. We both want to do that. Uh, we both have a similar worldview in life. We read a lot of the same kind of subjects. We love to read about psychology, science, and technology. We are also really big Star Trek fans. Okay, we have like really big. So that's one of the reasons why there's an aura around you guys, because you work with the Department of Defense and NASA. We're like, whoa, this is really cool, right? So you can see that we have shared interests. We love the outdoors. There you go. uh, so there's a lot of shared interest. There's a lot of similar worldview, and so that really helps, right? So as a co-founder, you asked, what is it like to be a co-founder? Maybe I'll answer that. It's kind of like, it's very collaborative, where Aman and I would kind of attack a problem, and we'd be able to build on each other's ideas very rapidly. And both of us are the kind of guys who will not let it go. So if there's a really hard problem, nobody's leaving the room until it's done. And we know neither of us wants to give up either, right? So there's a lot of collaboration there. I think the biggest point for me is that lots of heated debates, like really direct, brutal, critical comments on work that we would have spent many hours, many weeks on, right? But at the same time, we're absolutely not worried about hurting each other's feelings. Okay. So imagine that, let's say we came up with a design and we're talking about it. we would call a spade a spade. If it really sucked, we would say, this really sucks. And we'd be very brutal about it, right? And we might get into really heated arguments. But we know that the idea is not about attacking each other's egos. It's basically about the best ideas win. So I think that's something that has really served us right. It's really hard to do in the corporate world. You always, especially in today's world, you're worried about, oh, I hope I don't hurt your feelings. And that's the right thing to do in a corporate environment, but it really slows you down in a startup, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and it more than slows you down, it prevents you from getting to the truth, right? So that's something that I really really enjoy. Um, yeah. Anything else, Aman, that you want to add to what it's like to be a co-founder?
I think we can be extremely vulnerable with each other. We can clearly call out if we are not able to solve a problem instead of pretending that we are trying and that is hurting the company, right? So
Mhm.
we can be extremely honest with each other about our strengths and weaknesses. And once we call that out, it becomes easier even for the other person to help, delegate, or figure out ways to work around your weakness. I find it very hard to go and talk about my strengths and weaknesses, like in general, in public, like being brutally honest. But with Vivek and I, we have this relationship. It's a little bit like college buddies, like met on the first day of college, graduated together, and have seen so much about each other. Like have seen each other really grow from strength to strength, build a solid relationship. So it's just like that. And I think the other part I wanted to mention was I think last whatever 3.5 4 years has always been we get into a room and then we're solving a problem. There's hardly any time for anything else. It's just one problem after the other that we've been attacking, and it's just great to learn. We bring very different thought process to solving a problem. We both try first principles approach, but I really like to, let's say, look at everybody's work, how they have solved the problem. Vivek likes to sort of come up with his own original solution. So we mix and match, and we figure out what the best solution really is. And like the most joyful moments are when you come out from that meeting knowing that none of us alone could have gotten to that solution. So the solution is a product of our collaboration. So those moments are really joyful. Other than customers reaching out to us and telling us they loved the project that they did with Qweebi, but yeah, that's what's fun about working with Vivek.
I think I want to say one thing, because the audience is right for it. They understand. Building a startup with Aman and Abhi is really like one giant engineering design process project. Okay, where you build your first prototype, go to market, and it's going to crash and burn. You have to figure out what went wrong, and then have a hypothesis. Build version 2. It's going to crash and burn, and you have to keep on iterating. What I find is it needs a lot of grit, and it's really hard to find partners that you can team up together and really push past failure, right? So there's a lot of I would say there's a lot more lows than there are highs.
Yeah.
So it's great to have to be able to hold hands and kind of say that, yeah, we're in this together, and pick each other up. So I think that's what it is, right?
I love that. And it's been really great, hearing about your journey and getting to know you personally. And just, I'm very impressed with everything you've been able to accomplish. Claire and I write curriculum, but it's just like a PDF document, like you guys are building this whole world, this whole virtual makerspace. And we've just been amazed at what you've been able to create. So I want to end with one final question that I want you guys to ask, because you said you had a question that you wanted. Ask us something on the podcast. So I'm going to hand it off to Vivek and Aman if you have one final question.
Yeah, Aman, what do you think? We keep wondering this about Vivify, right? In fact, we always thought Vivify was like a company of 50 people, okay? Because of the amount of stuff that you guys keep coming up with, right? So our question to you is, what is your process? Can you show us a little bit behind the curtains on how you guys operate? Because clearly you guys do, you guys are prolific writers. You teach in the classroom. You've done now your PhD on STEM, and you've got your nonprofits as well. How does all of this come together? And at the same time, you're always, every time there's new content available so frequently. How do you guys manage this?
We're holding up coffee. Claire, you want to take that one?
Thank you. Those are very kind words. And it sounds like we have accomplished a whole lot. But I would say, just like you were commenting, there's often more failures than there are successes. And so we've learned a lot about how we have limitations. So I think one of the best moves that we made was getting help with other people. Something that we just are, I'm just going to say it, Natasha, we're terrible at is graphics. So that was one of the first things we outsourced. Was like, we can do all the mathy things, but we can't do the pretty things. So we got help with that. And so we have built a really great team that helps us out with everything from social media, editing this podcast, to curriculum writers that do excellent work, that are like-minded. And so we're really grateful that it's not just two of us. It was just two of us for what, 5 years, Natasha?
5 years. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I think similar to your story, it's about that passion. So I think when you are passionate about something, about finding the solution to a problem, and about the big picture of where are we going with this, it's not a job. And when you get to work with somebody who you are sharing this all with, and it's really easy. So like both of you guys, just working with Natasha is easy. So there's, of course, times where I do something, she's like, that's dumb. I'm not doing that. I'm doing it this way. And I'm like, okay, but it's all for the better. Or when I say we're not going to use orange because there will never be orange in our stuff. And so I make her change the color. But
joke.
But it just makes it so that you can accomplish so much more when you're like-minded and headed in the same direction. So, and then I think having really supportive families, that's huge. So our husbands are both very supportive and allow us to be able to spend a lot of nights and weekends working on things that at a regular job, we wouldn't be able to accomplish the amount of things that we do. Because when you're co-founders, the clock never stops, right? It's like, when do you take time off? There is no vacation because you're still, at least
Something's
mentally,
always breaking. Someone's angry. Purchase orders, taxes to be done.
Don't bring up taxes.
Sorry.
I can't.
But I agree. I think Vivek is probably wanting some like secret, magical process that we've developed. And I can't say there is a good one. We go after what we're passionate about. We are not always as strategic as maybe we should be. We are very like passion forward. So we've been in the classroom. I ran an after school program. And so we know what works. And so we go after that. So everything we create is directly from our own experience and what we're passionate about. We're not trying to copy anybody. We're not trying to just build something for the sake of making money. We are creating lessons that we very much would use in our own classroom. And then it's trying to find the people. And that has been a struggle, is finding great curriculum writers that are teachers that get the kind of STEM and engineering that we do. So we're very thankful to our team that we've built. And we're actually doing our first ever retreat with the whole Vivify team in a couple weeks. So we'll be celebrating our 10 years of Vivify and bringing our whole team together. So it's been all done virtually. So it's pretty cool. But I think we're going to have to come back, bring you guys back on the podcast. I appreciate you sharing your story, sharing your company, your vision. And I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the STEM Space.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Just feels a little bit like a dream that one email and 2 years later we're on your podcast. That's pretty amazing. And so thank you guys for everything that you've done for Qweebi as well. And yeah, been a joy being here.
And we will share all the details on those interested in Qweebi and the platform and how to bring it in your classroom. We'll post everything below. But for now, STEM Space out.